Hello and welcome to Cuppa Time. I'm thrilled you could join me today. I'm joined and I'm very pleased to see Rosalind. So hi, Rosalind.
Hi, hello Fiona.
So, nature of Cuppa Time. Could you please share with me your favourite cup or cups?
Yes, I have brought a few, so we'll see how we go. I realised when you asked me this question, actually, how many sentimental mugs we have. My husband is mug obsessed. So probably in order of the day, actually, this was originally, let me hold it up to there, it's got a little marking, not that it's of much importance. This was originally a Father's Day present from my son to his father, but I've kind of taken over it because it's the perfect size for a big early morning cup of coffee. So this is my favourite one, I think, just because it's tactile, it's really nice to hold, and I often take it if the weather's nice enough. In the morning I go out and have my cup of coffee in the garden, and it's just a reassuring good first coffee of the day mug. So I'm very fond of this one for that reason, and it just starts my day off right. So that's that one. Then this is probably my one I use the most, which is a silly one, but it was a Mother's Day present this year from my son, and it's got a little character on it who's from I don't play video games as a rule, but I have one that I have, and it's kind of a relaxing, calming one, and this is a character from it. So my son bought me this for Mother's Day, so I use this one a lot because it obviously has sentimental ties to my son from it. And my last two, this one was a present from a friend of mine. I am very obsessed with seagulls, and she bought it as a thank you because she lives across the road. Her son is best friends with my son, and we do a lot for each other, helping out, looking after each other's children, or we did before lockdown. And so she bought me this as a thank you, to say thank you for lots of things I've done for her recently. So it was a really nice, I wasn't expecting it, and it just turned up one day. So that's also a favourite. And then this last one, because it's very cheery and bright, and it always makes me feel better, as mugs do. Mugs have a very, as I said, since I've spoken, since we've started arranging this, it's just occurred to me how much a big part mugs play in our lives, because we use them every day. And as I said, this one always cheers me up just from looking at it, because it's bright and cheery and just a very cute bird on it. So it's been a very interesting exercise. Thank you. As I said, I had to shut the cupboard door because I could have brought in 20 of these things. And these are my four.
For me, I'll look at a cup, and if it's one that's a nice smiley one, it'll make me smile. If it's something that's got something written on it that's a bit funny, or it's got a funny character on, that'll make me smile. And likewise, if it's got the memory of someone giving it to me, those, go through your mind just as you're picking it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think because we often buy, as I said, my husband is mug obsessed, and he buys them when we go on holiday, or if we have a special day out, he'll always buy a mug, or so that just reminds you of really nice times in your life, or ones, my child's bought for me that he's just picked out. So they have a lot more sentimental value and a lot more memory in them that I'd ever really considered until I started doing this.
So apart from the cups and the mugs, is there anything in particular that you do that helps to keep you be uplifted and being the wonderful lady that you are?
I mean, obviously I'm a writer by trade, so writing is my go-to. So that's the one thing I pick. I use a technique called free writing a lot if I need to, if my mind's racing, if I need to sort of get everything out, I use free writing just to get it all down on paper, which immediately makes me feel calmer. That's always been, reading and writing has always been my thing. I've discovered a lot more since the lockdown started, actually, being outside. I mean, I think everyone knows this and appreciates it, but we've had more time to appreciate our gardens. I live right by a common, so I've been walking on there and just listening to birdsong. Obviously, since there's been less cars around, less aeroplanes, the birds have been louder. And I found that has been kind of my saving grace, I think, throughout all this, just being able to be outside. My garden has never been tidier because I never normally have time to do anything with it, but now where we've been balancing, I've had a little bit less work going on. I've been out in the garden just clearing things, and even, I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing in the garden, but just chopping things and digging things up and tidying things makes me feel calmer and just able to breathe. And I think, again, with the lack of pollution from the aeroplanes, the air has been so much nicer, so probably subconsciously even just breathing better, just being out there has really, really helped.
So I think as well, it's sort of taking the time to do it. Like you say, there's not enough time normally
No.
to do those things, and it's possibly having some of those things going forward as well. Maybe not to
Yeah.
the extent that we've got now, but you know,
Yeah.
filling in some of those things.
Well,
So,
that's it. I think.
go on.
Sorry. Because I think the mornings, normally when my son's at school, I do the school run in the morning for him and his friend, and it's up, breakfast, get dressed, get your stuff, let's get out the door. And it's a huge rush, and it's not till I come home that I start to, I'm able to stop. And it's been lovely now. I still get up at the same time, so my son and I can have breakfast together and then start his schoolwork. But I have half an hour where he's busy before we have breakfast, and I just sit in the garden with my cup and a book and just start the day and breathe in the air. And I think I'd really like to keep that going. So whether that means just getting up 20 minutes earlier when schools go back, and just keeping that focus moment in my life, because it really helps, I think, just having that start to the day rather than just, falling out of bed and rushing for the rest of the day.
Yeah, because it sets the tone for your day as well.
Yes, it does, and just gives me a moment to think and just plan my day out while I'm relaxing and drinking my coffee, and just having time where I'm not just racing for one thing or shouting at my son to get ready.
So in terms of you, would there be anything that people don't know about you, or something that you've done in the past that would surprise people?
I've got two things actually I thought of when this question came up. The first one is most people who I know that I am very, very claustrophobic. I've had it since I was born. It's extreme claustrophobia, and it's made me fairly terrified of flying. So the one thing that most people find really surprising was, I was going back a bit now, I mean, it was 2004 maybe, but I took myself to Brazil to do a 3-week work experience thing. So I was in my 20s, but I was very scared of flying, hadn't flown for a while, and all of a sudden I just booked time off work, booked some time in Brazil, and I went and worked with children in a school over there for 3 weeks. So I did this huge plane journey all by myself. It was just one of those real, I'm going to grab this moment and I'm going to do it. So people are quite surprised when I tell them that actually I have done that and I did do it by myself, because I'm not a brave person particularly. I don't take risks. I'm not a thrill seeker. But this was just something that happened at one time that I just thought, I have to do this. I need to do something for myself, and I need to face up to the fear. So it wasn't easy. The flying was incredibly difficult, but I did it. And it's something that's always stayed with me. And I think it gave me courage to go forward in the future to do actually, well, I've done that, so I can do other things. And I think the other thing, this is a very silly thing, but no, not many people know this actually, but I lied to Gordon Ramsay, which is one of my one secret that I'm not proud of it, but I queued up for him a long, long time ago. He did a book signing when I lived in Kingston. And so my friend and I went there and we bought his book, and I queued up to see him and got to the front of the queue, and he was very nice and he signed my book and he said, so what are you having for dinner this evening? And what I was actually having was something like sausages and chips, and I thought, I can't tell Gordon Ramsay as I'm holding his book that I'm going to have sausages and chips. So I said I was going to do rack of lamb with rosemary and garlic, and he was really impressed. And then I had to leave, and I felt awful that I'd lied to him, but I just couldn't bring myself to tell him that actually I was doing something really unambitious and just shove it in the oven.
Well, there would be another day for the rack of lamb. So
yes, I'm sure I will do one someday.
Right. So talking about you as well, I just wondered if there was anything in your house that you've had for a long time and you can't bear to part with it, or it's just so sentimental you just have always kept it.
And again, another really interesting question. I haven't thought about this. I used to be incredibly sentimental about everything, and I kept boxes. People, if there was somebody I liked at school who gave me a chewing gum, I'd keep the wrapper. Just everything I used to hold on to the point my friend called me a magpie, because anything shiny, bright, I would keep. Yeah. Or a squirrel, actually, she called me, because I just used to hoard everything. And as I've got older, I'm not as sentimental as I was. I've come to the realization that things don't matter as much. So looking around the house and thinking of things, there are a couple of things in a non-sentimental way, but a practical way. My notebooks, things I've written in over the years, would probably be the one thing, because there's so much in there. Not much merit in any of it, but there's things I've written over the years that have been highly personal or reminded me of a certain time. So I think they would be hard to lose, because I forever be sort of wondering what I'd written in there, if there was anything that I would use in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the other thing is my son's baby book, because my memory is really terrible, and as I get older it's getting worse. And I wrote down, as most mums do, first time mums do, I wrote down pretty much everything he said or did over the first sort of 3 or 4 years, including lots of silly songs he made up, little stories he composed when he was little, all the funny things he said. So I think that would be very, very hard to lose if that disappeared, because it would erase an awful lot of things that I don't remember, but I have written down. So that's probably the one sentimental thing that I would keep hold of.
Uh-huh. I think for myself, I absolutely agree with you. I've always had quite a sharp memory, but I have noticed when I become busy with lots of other things, sometimes of late, it's not all been there.
Yeah, it's difficult. We have a lot going on, and I think it's not that we have, that it isn't there, that we do have awful memories. Actually, it's because there's so much going on. It's trying to recall certain things. There's so much packed into these filing cabinets in our head. But interestingly, with this one, my first thought was photos and photo albums, but actually I don't think I would, because although I take lots of photographs, and we obviously take a lot more now, it's digital rather than having to get a film developed. How often do I look back on most of those photographs? Occasionally I'll look specifically for something, but I've got reams and reams of photos, and my parents have got lots of photo albums, but I never go and look through them. So actually I don't think, whilst it would be sad if you lost them, it wouldn't be quite as heart-wrenching as I previously imagined it would be, because I don't look at them. And really, I think they're lovely things to pass down for generations, but for me personally, I don't feel the need to go and look at them that often, so they wouldn't be the one thing that I had to keep hold of, I don't think.
So day to day, you're writing, you're looking after the family. Is there anything that you can share with me that's either a cost or time saving thing that you do?
I mean, I think the one to do with work and to do with writing, I practice free writing, which is basically kind of subconscious writing, not thinking about what you're writing and just letting the pen and your imagination go. And I find that saves me a lot of time, because I am a huge procrastinator. So I can sit down, and if I don't do this, I'll just look at a piece of the blank screen freeze is what I tend to call it. You sit down, you've got to write something, and it's just looking at you, and you stare at it and you stare at it and you do nothing. And I learned free writing quite a few years ago now, and every time I get that moment of like, I don't know what I've got to write, I sit down and I do free writing, and 10 minutes of just letting my subconscious pour onto the screen or into a notebook, and actually that frees me up, and I can then start writing what I'm doing. So rather than having 40 minutes of just staring at a blank screen, I do 10 minutes of free writing, and then that throws me into what I'm doing. So I find that saves me an awful lot of just blank time. But also I think the one thing, and I think it's probably more a woman thing, because we have an awful lot to do. So I am generalizing slightly, and I know there are a lot of men who do a lot of things as well, but I think when you work from home and you've got a family and a house, you're forever trying to do, I try to work, and I'm also thinking of the washing and my son's tea and whether I need to get something from the shops. And I think we try and multitask. So I tend to start off 10 things and either do them all badly or not finish them. So I've learned in the last couple of years, I've tried really hard to be more focused, writing lists, breaking those lists down into small achievable tasks, and doing one at a time and finishing it, doing it well and finishing it before I move on to the next thing. So I think that saved me a lot of time, in the sense that I might only finish 2 things in a day, but it means that those 2 things are finished and they're off the to-do list, rather than having 10 things that I've started but they're still on the list the next day. So I think being more focused and working out, I think also prioritizing what on my list is the most urgent, what do I actually need to get done today, and what can wait for a bit longer until I've got my time.
One thing I would add to that is something that I've learned is I wouldn't necessarily start things and not get them finished, so there's no comment regarding that. But what it is I think a lot of people might generally give themselves a hard time for not actually finishing the things they set out to finish. So I would give as a gift to people, I would say, even if you only get one thing done, You know, it doesn't have
Yes.
to be 2, 3, 4 or 5. If you only get one thing done, give yourself a pat on the back at the end of the day and say, well, do you know what? Because that one thing might have been a massive thing that took hours.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas the other things might have been smaller tasks. So that's the one thing I'd share there, is that, you know, whatever you've achieved, you're moving forward, you've achieved it, rather than I've not got this, this and this done. So keep yourself upbeat about it rather than negative that you've not achieved.
Yeah, I think that's a lot to be said at the end of each day, to do a little bit of, actually, this is exactly as you said, this is what I've achieved, rather than worrying about what you haven't. It's being appreciative of what you have managed to get done. I think that's really important, and then starting the next day on a positive of, I did all this yesterday, this is what I'm going to do today. And also not trying to overwhelm yourself, being aware that actually you can't do, you know, most of us have a very, very long to-do list, and it never gets any shorter, because whatever you take off, you replace with something else. But I think being realistic about what you can achieve in a day as well, so you don't feel overwhelmed by it all.
Lovely. Well, I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been lovely. Thank you.
I've actually got a lot of other things that I need to achieve today, so that's not trying to cut us short, because it's been lovely and I could keep chatting and chatting, as you know. But yes, I really appreciate your time and coming to see me today. Well, obviously not in person, but virtually. So thank you very much.
Yes. No, lovely. Thank you for inviting me. It's been great.
All right. See you again.